What if comfort and routine hide the biggest secret of all? Claire once believed her life was exactly what she dreamed of. She had a cozy house in Portland, a husband who made her coffee every morning, and a job at a small publishing firm she actually liked. Her friends often said she was lucky, that stability was love's greatest gift. But lately, that same stability felt heavy. Conversations at dinner turned short. Their laughter had become a memory, and Daniel, her husband of 8 years, seemed to be fading into distance, even while sitting right beside her. It wasn't one big moment that changed things. It was small ones. The phone Daniel kept face down on the table, the sudden late meetings, the quiet sighs when he thought she wasn't listening. Claire told herself it was just stress. Everyone gets tired. Everyone drifts sometimes, but the silence between them was starting to sound like something deeper, something dangerous. One cloudy afternoon, while searching for a blanket in the guest room, Claire found something strange. A brown leather notebook tucked beneath an old box. It looked worn, as if handled often. She assumed it was one of Daniel's. He used to jot down design ideas for his architecture work. But when she opened it, her breath caught. Inside were words written in 2 different handwritings, Daniel's and someone else's. The first page said, "You see beauty in things no one notices." The next line, written in Daniel's handwriting, replied, "Only when I look at them through your eyes, M." Her fingers froze. She turned the pages quickly. More notes. Small drawings of coffee cups, city lights, and tiny hearts drawn in the corner of the pages. They weren't vulgar or explicit, but they were intimate. Every page carried a sense of closeness, a whisper of emotion. Something she hadn't shared with Daniel in months. Her pulse raced. Who was M? A friend? A colleague? Or something more? She wanted to close the notebook and forget it existed, but curiosity and pain held her captive. There was an entry about a late-night drive, another about a cafe they might go back to soon, and then one final line, "You make the quiet moments feel alive." That night, Claire couldn't sleep. She lay in bed, pretending to be calm, while her thoughts spiraled. Daniel slept peacefully beside her, unaware that she was staring into the darkness, her chest tight. She tried to convince herself it was harmless, maybe a creative project. But deep down, she knew the difference between imagination and confession. When morning came, she moved through the house like a ghost. Daniel was cheerful, almost too cheerful. "Big meeting today," he said while buttoning his shirt. He kissed her cheek, the same way he had every day for years, but she noticed something. His cologne was new. She hadn't smelled it before, and for the first time in their marriage, that simple kiss felt like a stranger's touch. Would you want to know the truth if it could break your heart? As soon as Daniel left, Claire sat at the dining table staring at the notebook. She felt torn, between trust and suspicion, between love and self-defense. Finally, she decided to look through it once more, this time carefully. At the back, she found a receipt from a cafe 2 blocks from her office, dated just 3 days ago. The handwriting on it was neat, feminine. Her thoughts tangled. Why would Daniel meet someone there? Why hide it? But she reminded herself not to jump to conclusions. Maybe it was work. Maybe there was a logical explanation. Yet deep down, logic had already lost its voice. All day at work, Claire couldn't focus. The sound of her coworker typing felt distant. Her email stayed unread. When Daniel texted her at lunch, "Hope your day's going okay. Love you." She just stared at the message. It didn't feel real anymore. After work, she decided to walk past the cafe mentioned on the receipt. She didn't know why. Maybe she just needed to see it. It was a small place, quiet, with warm lights glowing through the window. She stopped outside and peered in. A familiar mug, a wooden counter, couples chatting. But nothing else. Daniel wasn't there. Relief and confusion blended in her chest. Back home, Daniel returned late. "Sorry," he said casually, placing his phone on the counter. The meeting ran long. Claire nodded, forcing a smile. But when he walked away to take a shower, she noticed something. His work laptop, the one he always carried, was still sitting on the counter, screen slightly open. Her heart began to pound. She hesitated, standing there, staring at it. She told herself to walk away. She didn't want to become the kind of person who checked her spouse's things. But her instincts screamed louder than her reason. Slowly, she lifted the screen. The laptop blinked awake, revealing Daniel's home screen, their wedding photo. They looked happy, untouchable. But that image now felt like a lie she'd been living inside. The notification bar flashed. New email from Monsieur Claire's hands trembled. She didn't even click it, she just stared at the name. It was real. Not an imaginary fear, not a misunderstanding. Whoever M was, they were still talking, still connected. She shut the laptop, her breath uneven. The room felt colder. The hum of the refrigerator sounded louder. Everything around her looked the same, but nothing felt the same. When Daniel stepped out of the shower, he smiled softly. "You okay?" he asked. She nodded. "Just tired," she lied. He leaned in to kiss her goodnight, but she turned slightly, pretending to reach for the lamp. That night, Claire lay awake, her mind spinning in a storm of questions. Was she ready to confront him? Did she even want to know the full truth? Or would knowing destroy what little peace they had left? Her heart whispered one truth she couldn't ignore. Curiosity was already consuming her. And secrets, once found, never stay silent for long. The next morning, Daniel left earlier than usual for a client meeting. But when Claire went to make her coffee, she noticed something strange. His laptop, the one that received that message from M, was still on the counter. Open, waiting. And in that quiet kitchen, her shaking hand reached toward it again. Would you open the message that could destroy your peace? The morning light slipped through the kitchen window, soft and harmless. But Claire's world didn't feel that way. Her heart was beating too fast, her palms were damp. Daniel's laptop sat on the counter again, screen glowing faintly, waiting like a door she shouldn't open but couldn't ignore. She stood there for a long moment, frozen between fear and curiosity. Then, quietly, she moved closer. With a slow breath, she opened the screen. The inbox appeared. At the top, a message from M. Her throat went dry. She told herself she'd only glance. Just enough to understand. Just one look. But one look was all it took to change everything. The subject line read, "Can't wait to see you again." Her stomach tightened. Her eyes fell to the body of the email, a few simple lines. Yesterday felt too short. "I miss the way you notice the little things." And beneath that, an image. A woman sitting by a cafe window, sunlight spilling over her hair. She was smiling, a soft, effortless smile. It wasn't just the photo that hurt. It was the warmth in Daniel's reply below it. "Next time, I'll make sure we have more time. Mornings are better with you." The words hit like a quiet storm. No shouting, no chaos, just a silent collapse. Claire closed the laptop slowly, her hands trembling. The house around her looked normal. Their wedding photo on the wall, his coat by the door, her mug on the table. But none of it felt real anymore. Would you still search for truth if it meant losing what you love most? For hours she couldn't move. Her thoughts circled like birds trapped in a small room. Maybe it wasn't what it looked like. Maybe she misunderstood. But deep down she knew. Those weren't words between friends. That wasn't the tone of business. It was something else. Something that used to belong to her. At work she couldn't focus. Her fingers hovered over her keyboard, pretending to type while her mind screamed questions. Every time her phone buzzed, she flinched. Around noon, Daniel texted, "Hope you're having a good day. Dinner tonight?" She stared at the screen, unable to reply. He was pretending everything was normal. But she knew normal was gone. Her eyes drifted toward the window. The same cafe from the photo, 2 blocks away. The thought formed quietly, almost against her will. Go there. She told herself it wasn't spying, just clarity. She needed to see the truth with her own eyes. The cafe smelled like roasted coffee and vanilla. Warm, calm, ordinary, the kind of place where no one expects heartbreak to walk in. Claire sat near the window, pretending to scroll her phone, but her eyes scanned every table. Couples chatted, friends laughed, and then she saw her. The woman from the photo, her hair caught the light the same way. She was reading a book, the same book Claire had edited last year. For a moment, time froze. Claire couldn't look away. There was no anger, only disbelief. She didn't look like the kind of woman who destroyed homes. She looked Kind, then, as if sensing her gaze, the woman looked up. Their eyes met. For a split second, she smiled politely, unaware of who Claire was. That simple, gentle smile made Claire's chest ache. She turned away, pretending to sip her coffee, her hands shaking so much she nearly spilled it. Outside, rain began to fall, soft, steady, cleansing. But inside her, the storm only grew stronger. What hurts more, the betrayal or the pretending? That evening, Daniel came home early. He kissed her cheek like always, smiled, asked about her day. His tone was light, almost cheerful. Claire nodded and answered mechanically. Every word she spoke felt like glass. She couldn't decide which hurt more, his lies or her silence. At dinner, she tried to look normal, but her thoughts screamed underneath the quiet. Every time he checked his phone, she noticed. Every pause, every glance. It all carried meaning now. The person she thought she knew best suddenly felt like a stranger sitting across the table. After dinner, he went upstairs to take a call. His voice was soft, muffled, almost careful. She couldn't hear words, just the tone, low, personal. When he came back, he smiled again, as if nothing was wrong. "You okay?" he asked. She forced a smile. "Just tired." He nodded, kissed her forehead, and walked away. And as soon as he left, her phone buzzed. She expected it to be her friend or maybe a work reminder. But it wasn't. It was Daniel. A message. "I'm thinking about you." For a moment, she almost softened, until she noticed something strange. He'd sent it through his work phone, the one he never texted her from, the same number that appeared in that email thread from M. Her heart dropped. The message wasn't meant for her. He'd sent it to the wrong person. She stared at the screen, frozen. Outside, thunder rumbled faintly, echoing her heartbeat. She reread the message over and over, hoping she was wrong. But there was no mistake. He came downstairs moments later, unaware of his error, talking about how tomorrow he'd be busy with client work. Claire just nodded, keeping her face calm. Inside, everything shattered. When he finally went to bed, she stayed up on the couch, the message still glowing on her phone. Her mind replayed every moment, the smiles, the quiet dinners, the promises. She thought about the woman in the cafe, the emails, the notebook. All the pieces that once seemed harmless now formed a painful truth. Her world hadn't broken in a single second. It had cracked slowly, quietly, one small secret at a time. What do you do when love becomes a lie you can't unsee? The clock ticked past midnight. Claire sat there, numb, the house wrapped in silence. She wanted to scream, to cry, to demand answers. But part of her was afraid of hearing them. What if Daniel admitted everything? What if he didn't? Which would hurt more? Her eyes landed on his jacket draped over the chair, his phone half visible in the pocket. She stared at it for a long time. One tap, one scroll, and she could know the full truth. But knowing would change everything forever. She reached for it, then stopped. Her breath trembled. She wasn't ready, not yet. Instead, she whispered to the empty room. "Who are you, Em?" Outside, the rain kept falling. Soft, endless, like the sound of something breaking quietly inside her. The next morning, as Claire stepped into her office, her coworker handed her a new client file. The cover page read, Project Lead, Melissa Hart, and under it, in neat handwriting, was a name she'd seen before. The name Daniel had written over and over in that secret notebook. Is it betrayal if two lost hearts find each other in pain? Claire's hands shook as she stared at the name on the file. Melissa Hart. Her heartbeat quickened, her breath caught. The name she'd seen in Daniel's secret notebook, the one attached to that email, the woman in the cafe. She was real, and now, she was standing one step closer to Claire's world. Fate wasn't just hinting anymore, it was forcing the truth into her life. That morning, Claire couldn't focus on anything. Her coworker chatted about weekend plans, but all she heard was the echo of that name in her head, Melissa Hart. Every syllable felt heavy, personal, dangerous. She opened the file, hoping for a coincidence. Maybe it was just someone with the same name. But there it was, the contact email. The same one she had seen on Daniel's laptop. Her chest tightened. The walls of the office felt smaller, her air thinner. She sat there for a long moment, her mind racing through every possibility. Maybe Daniel didn't know she worked here. Maybe this project was innocent. But the truth was no longer hiding in shadows. It was walking right into her office. Would you face the person who unknowingly changed your life? Later that afternoon, Claire went downstairs to the small cafe inside the building. She needed a minute, just 1 minute to breathe. But when she turned around with her cup of coffee, her heart froze. Melissa was there, the same woman from the photo, the same soft smile. She was standing at the counter, speaking kindly to the barista, wearing a beige coat and a calm expression. Claire's hands trembled so badly she almost dropped her cup. Their eyes met again, and this time, Melissa's expression changed. Recognition flickered. She walked over slowly, unsure, cautious. "Claire?" she asked, her voice gentle. "You're Daniel's wife, right?" The world stopped spinning for a second. Claire didn't know how to answer. The sound of her own name felt sharp, unfamiliar. She nodded quietly, unable to find words. Melissa's eyes softened with regret. "I thought so. I should have come to you sooner." They sat down in the corner booth, neither touching their coffee. For a while, neither spoke. The silence felt heavy but not angry, just sad. Finally, Melissa broke it. "I didn't mean for any of this to happen. We met at a client event. He talked about his work, about books, about you. I didn't even know he was married at first." Claire's heart twisted. She wanted to hate her, to walk away, to scream. But something in Melissa's tone made it impossible. There was no arrogance, no defense, just quiet regret. "When did you find out?" Claire asked softly. "A few weeks ago," Melissa said, eyes downcast. "I ended it. I told him I couldn't keep meeting." He didn't argue. He just looked lost. Claire sat still, her emotions colliding. Anger, sadness, confusion. She wanted answers, but they all hurt. "Why are you telling me this now?" she asked. Melissa hesitated. "Because you deserve to know the truth, not through secrets, but through honesty. Whatever happened between us, it wasn't love. It was loneliness, and I think he still loves you." The words hit Claire like a soft blow. She didn't know whether to believe them or not. The husband who lied, who wrote secret messages, who made her doubt herself. He still loved her? It sounded impossible, yet somehow she wanted to believe it. They parted quietly, no anger exchanged. Just two women carrying the weight of one man's silence. What happens when the truth hurts, but the lies hurt more? That night, Claire walked into her house, her heart pounding. Daniel was in the living room, typing on his laptop. He looked up and smiled, unaware that the world had already shifted around them. "Daniel," she said, her voice steady but cold. "Who is Melissa Hart?" The smile faded. For the first time, she saw fear in his eyes. He opened his mouth, but no excuses came out. Only silence. Finally, he sighed, his voice low. "It started with conversations. Nothing more. We talked about work, about life. I didn't plan it. I just didn't know how to talk to you anymore." His words felt like 1,000 small cuts. Not because they were cruel, but because they were true. Claire realized then that this wasn't about betrayal alone. It was about everything they'd both stopped saying. The distance, the exhaustion, the unspoken loneliness. Tears filled her eyes, not from anger but from sadness. "You could have talked to me," she whispered. "You didn't have to find someone else to feel heard." "I know," he said, his voice breaking. "And I'm sorry. I don't expect forgiveness. I just lost us somewhere along the way." The air between them grew still. The man she once trusted more than anyone now looked like a stranger. Yet also, painfully, like the same person she'd once fallen in love with. That night, Daniel slept in the guest room. Claire lay awake, staring at the ceiling, her heart divided between love and loss. The sound of the rain outside reminded her of their early days, two people who used to talk about everything. Now they couldn't even share silence without breaking it. Can a broken heart still remember how to hope? Morning came heavy. Claire made coffee but couldn't drink it. Every corner of the house felt like a memory. On the counter lay Daniel's favorite mug, the one she'd bought for their anniversary. She picked it up, her fingers tracing the faded letters. "Forever us." Her phone buzzed. A new message. For a moment, she thought it was Daniel. But it wasn't. It was Melissa. He ended it last night. I thought you should know, but you should also know something else. He's still writing about you. Claire's breath caught. Writing about her? She quickly went to the guest room. Daniel was gone, but his notebook sat on the nightstand, the same leather one she'd found before. With trembling hands, she opened it. The first few pages were old notes, but deeper inside, she found new ones. Fresh handwriting. Her name written again and again. Short lines filled the pages. She still makes me nervous. I ruined the best thing I ever had. If she walks away, I deserve it. But I hope she won't. Claire closed the notebook slowly, her eyes wet but calm. She didn't know what to feel, anger or forgiveness. Maybe both. For the first time, she saw Daniel not as a villain, but as a man lost inside his own loneliness. But the wound was still open, and trust doesn't grow overnight. She needed time, maybe space, maybe distance. As the sun rose, Claire sat quietly by the window, holding the notebook close. The pages smelled like ink and regret. Love, she realized, wasn't always destroyed by hate. Sometimes it just got buried under silence, waiting for someone brave enough to dig it back up. Later that evening, as Claire stepped outside for fresh air, she saw Daniel standing by the porch, suitcase in hand. He looked up, his eyes tired but full of something new, remorse. "I'm giving you space," he said softly, "but I'll keep writing until you're ready to read again." And as he walked away into the fading light, Claire felt the wind brush against her face, cold, but carrying a hint of hope she wasn't ready to admit. Can love survive once the illusion is gone? The house felt emptier after Daniel left. The silence that used to suffocate Claire now lingered like a soft ache. Not painful, just quiet. Each morning, she still made 2 cups of coffee out of habit, only to pour one down the sink. The chair across from her remained untouched. Days passed in slow waves. Work, home, sleep, and yet beneath it all something in her had shifted. She was no longer the same woman who feared the truth. Now she lived with it, understood it, and strangely didn't hate it anymore. The first week without Daniel was the hardest. She would hear a sound upstairs and imagine him walking down, smiling, asking if she'd seen his keys. But it wasn't him, only the echo of a memory. She tried distracting herself with work, reading, walks through the park, but every little thing carried his presence. Even the quiet corners of the city reminded her of him. One afternoon, she got an unexpected email. It was from Melissa. For a moment, she considered deleting it. But curiosity won. The message was short. "I just wanted to say goodbye properly. I'm moving to Seattle for a new job. What happened between all of us? It wasn't fair to you. I'm sorry. He really did love you, Claire. I think he still does." Claire read it twice. There was no bitterness in those words, only peace. She realized Melissa wasn't the villain in her story. She was just another broken person who had stumbled into the wrong kind of comfort. The anger that had once burned inside her slowly faded into something gentler. Understanding. What if forgiveness is not weakness, but freedom? Weeks later, Claire finally called Daniel. Not to argue or cry, just to talk. He answered almost immediately. His voice sounded careful, hesitant. "Claire?" "Hi," she said softly. "I just wanted to know how you're doing." There was a long pause. "Trying," he finally said. "I've been going to therapy, writing more, thinking a lot." She smiled faintly. "Still writing about me?" she asked. He laughed quietly. "Always." That call lasted hours. They talked about everything. Their first apartment, the road trips, the little moments that built their love. It wasn't the same as before, but it was honest. And honesty was something they hadn't shared in a long time. Over the next few weeks, they kept talking. Not every day, not about reconciliation, just life. And with every conversation, the weight on Claire's heart lightened. She still didn't trust him completely, but for the first time, she wanted to. Then one rainy Sunday morning, he showed up at her door. He didn't bring flowers or gifts, only a small notebook. "I've been writing again," he said. "But this time it's not about regret. It's about learning how to start over." She hesitated but let him in. They sat across from each other, the same kitchen table that once carried secrets now holding silence that felt different. peaceful. He opened the notebook and read a few lines aloud. They were simple words, not poetic, but real. She taught me that love isn't about perfection. It's about honesty. It's about staying, even when everything feels broken, and choosing to rebuild. Claire didn't cry. She just listened. For the first time, she saw Daniel not as the man who betrayed her, but as someone who had fallen, learned, and wanted to rise again. Can something broken become beautiful again? Over the next few months, they started small. Coffee together once a week. Walks in the park. They talked, sometimes laughed, sometimes sat quietly. It wasn't romantic yet, it was healing. Trust came in fragments, like sunlight breaking through clouds. People around them were surprised. Friends asked, why give him another chance? But Claire's answer was simple. Because people change when they're willing to face their own darkness. Daniel wasn't perfect, but neither was she. Their marriage hadn't failed because of one affair. It had failed long before that, in the moments they stopped seeing each other. One evening, as they walked by the river, Daniel stopped and looked at her. Do you think we could ever be us again? He asked. She looked at him for a long time before answering. Maybe not who we were, but maybe something new. He nodded, a small smile forming, and for the first time in months, Claire didn't feel the ache of betrayal. She felt hope. They didn't rush. No promises, no grand declarations, just quiet effort. Some days were good, others heavy. But every time they met, something unspoken healed between them. Months later, Claire invited him for dinner. The house smelled of rosemary and lemon, his favorite. They ate, talked, laughed softly. After dinner, she handed him his old mug. Thought you might want this back, she said. He smiled, eyes glistening. You kept it? Some things are worth keeping, she whispered. The next morning, she found a note on the kitchen table. His handwriting was familiar, steady, careful. Thank you for not giving up on the idea of us. Whether we rebuild or part as friends, I'll always be grateful for the love we shared. You're my beginning and my lesson. She folded the note carefully and placed it inside the notebook he'd given her, the one about starting over. Maybe closure isn't about endings and it's about peace. Time moved forward quietly. Claire learned to smile again, not because everything was perfect, but because she had survived imperfection. Daniel became part of her life again, though differently. They attended therapy together, spoke honestly, sometimes painfully, but pain was no longer an enemy. It was proof that they still cared. Months turned into a year. They didn't define what they were. They didn't need to. Love wasn't about labeling anymore. It was about choosing kindness each day. One evening, Claire stood by the window, watching the city lights shimmer. Daniel was reading on the couch. The silence between them wasn't empty. It was warm. She realized then that forgiveness didn't erase the past. It simply made space for the future. As Claire turned off the lights and headed upstairs, Daniel called out softly, I finished writing that story. She paused at the stairs, half smiling. The one about us? He nodded. Yes, but this time it doesn't end with goodbye. Claire looked at him for a long moment. The rain tapped gently against the windows. The air calm. She didn't ask how it ended. Not yet.